Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar with Mubashir Sheikh. So I just wanted to formally welcome everybody to this webinar offered by the School of Continuing Education at MacEwan University. I would like to remind or inform everybody that this is going to be recorded and that we do ask that you remain muted at all times during the webinar. All participants, so everybody involved today, will receive a link with the email, an email link with the recording, as well as further information as needed. And if you have any questions, anything that kind of comes up during the webinar, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A sections, which are down at the bottom of your screens. We will be addressing all questions at the end, and there will be time for questions and Q&A with Mubashir. So with that, I'd also like to say that this is endorsed by IIBA and would qualify as PD hours towards the ECBA or as CDUs towards recertification of other IIBA certifications, and it does count for 1 hour. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce Mubashir Sheikh, a longtime instructor with the School of Continuing Education who teaches both project management and business analysis with us. He is a certified business analysis professional and designated project management professional, bringing 20+ years of industry experience to the classroom. He's been managing a wide range of projects and teaching, coaching, and training in various industries in both public and private sectors. His areas of expertise are leadership and management to project management, business analysis, and Lean Six Sigma. He is very passionate about teaching, and we are happy to have him here with us today, presenting his webinar, Power Skills for Professionals. Mubashir, welcome.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, and I appreciate the wonderful welcome. So let's get going. All right, so you guys see my screen? So you guys don't see my screen? Oh, you do? Okay, awesome. All right, so let's get going. Thank you very much, folks, for joining me and giving me your lunch hour. I'll make sure that you get value out of it. My name is Mubashir Sheikh. It's a hard name to pronounce, but if you can pronounce the name, the webinar will be very easy for you to understand. You can call me M if that works for you. Some of the basic ground rules. Your participation is important. Feel free to message in the chat, especially when I'm asking a question. We will be doing a Q&A towards the end of the webinar, so you'll have some time to ask me any questions you would like. We'll keep our discussions professional based on the topic that we are discussing today. And more importantly, have fun, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. So the webinar has been inspired by the business analysis body of knowledge. They have some underlying competencies, and these are some of the skills that we're going to touch on today. So there are 6 main categories. So you go from analytical thinking to how do we behave with one another? What kind of business knowledge do we have? Can we communicate effectively or not? Our interactions with one another, and tools and technology that we have to deal with any kind of problem that we might face in the work that we do. So our focus today is going to be on the first one. We'll be focusing on the analytical thinking and problem solving. But before we go there, let's talk about one foundational concept efficiency or effectiveness. Now, in practical life, we have seen these terms being used interchangeably, when in reality they are not. So let's see what you guys think. If you were to pick one, which one would you pick? Efficiency or effectiveness? I'll start a poll and let's see what you guys could come up with. Just give me 1 sec. And again, there are no wrong answers, so feel free to respond back. What happens here stays here. Okay, there's still a few more folks outstanding. I'll give you maybe 5 more seconds. Okay, so it looks like we have a bit of a split. Most of us are leaning towards effectiveness, and some of us want to be efficient as well. And both these answers are accurate, and let me explain how. So I'll explain that in terms of an analogy. So imagine you get called into your boss's office, and they tell us that the task that we have to do is to climb up a ladder. So what do? We do some exercise, be in our best physical shape, we buy the right gear, so we have the right shoes and the right gloves. So when the time comes, we are working really hard, we are producing more with less, we are being very efficient, only to realize by the time we get up on that wall that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. So every step that we have taken actually has taken us away from our goal. So the point I'm making here is whenever we are starting an initiative or working on a project, ask those why questions in terms of why are we doing this initiative? Why I'm trying to scale this wall and not the other wall? Why I'm using the ladder and not an elevator? Those questions are really critical at the start of the initiative. The definition of done should be very clear because that will determine our direction. And once we have the direction, we'll focus on the right things. And then efficiency will make all the difference in terms of how fast we climb up to scale the right wall. But if we don't know the direction we are heading towards, then we won't be able to achieve our goal, no matter how much efficient we are and how much effort are we putting to get to our destination. So make sure we are being effective first, and then efficiency will make all the difference. So let's get going. In analytical thinking, we'll be talking about creative thinking. How do we learn? How do we solve our problems? Systems thinking, thinking conceptually and thinking visually. Creative thinking. Can we come up with new ideas? That's one of the important skills to have, especially when you're dealing with a kind of problem that you can't solve with the existing ideas that we have. Can we connect those ideas with the existing ideas that we have? Can we combine those ideas to make sure that we could be effective to deal with a problem that we are trying to resolve or solve at this point in time? And we would know that we are being effective, that we are open to new concepts. Now, we all have our own biases. I recently attended a workshop. It's called Unconscious Biasness. So how do you discover your unconscious biases? So we need to be very clear in terms of that we stay objective whenever we're thinking about new ideas. And when you have that kind of mindset, then you can leverage the creativity in your team members as well. Your stakeholders will be very creative if we have that creative mindset. And with that, you could leverage the ideas that you would get from different team members to deal with any kind of issues that we have at this point in time. One of the practical examples, there are lots of examples. going from science to arts to technology. This infinity pool in Singapore is built on top of these 3 buildings. And this is the view from the top. Creative thinking. One day we should visit there. I'll give you another example. And let me share a story with you folks. I used to consult with a big box retailer, and I was working on one of their process optimization for the return process. And the return was taking quite a bit, on average 15 minutes per customer. And customers were frustrated. So imagine yourself, you go into a store and you're waiting in the line. There are 4 people ahead of you, and you have to wait about an hour to get your turn. We'll be frustrated too. So the customers were not happy, and customer service folks were not happy as well, because they only had $10 approval limit to process any of the returns that are coming without any receipts, or the packages were open. So for those kind of returns, they would have to call a manager to override the system. And the manager in a big box store, they are running from one corner to another, fighting other fights. So by the time they would come to the customer service area, it would take them about 10 to 12 minutes. And we did a brainstorming session in terms of how do we go about it? How do we deal with this kind of problem? And one of the ideas that we selected was to increase the approval limit for our customer service folks from $10 to $250. Now keep in mind, the average ticket price in that particular store was around $100. So with that approval limit, the customer service folks were still held accountable for the returns, but they would not have to call a manager. We were able to reduce our processing time from 15 minutes to 3 minutes with just one change, and 80% improvement. So sometimes you have to think outside the box in terms of how could we think creatively to deal with the problem that we have. Now, you might very well respond by saying, well, you know what? Who's going to the physical stores now? We are shopping online, Amazon all the way. That's fair, but approval is a major process waste. No matter what organization you are in, sometimes it would take weeks, if not months, for someone to provide their approvals, and that would impact the progress of the work that we are doing. So make sure that you have some, the people who want to, or who actually are authorized to do, and with the signing authority, they delegate that authority to someone, especially if those approvals are very busy. And I have seen those examples both in public and private sector. This is a really good book. If you're interested in books, it talks about how to make your brain limitless, how to deal with the belief system and let go of the beliefs that are not helping us. So feel free to have a read if you like to read books. I do. Decision making. Can we make decisions? And this is another key skill for us to have. So the way we go about it, you collect all the information that you need. You analyze the information or review the information to see how well it's going to help us with the decision that we want to make. You weigh out different options based on the criteria that's important to us, and then you choose the best option. You know, it's easier said than done, but these are the steps that we go through to make a decision. And we would know if we are being effective or not, if we could get all the right stakeholders at the table so they could make an informed decision. And they understand the process in terms of how would we get the information, what criteria is important to us. So if you were to go out and hire a vendor, is it the cost? Is it their references? Is it their experience? What is important to the work that we want to do? And why do we have to make the decision? Our team members are so busy, we need to go out and hire a consultant. So once they understand the rationale, they'll come back and make the decision accordingly. And the way I said, we want to stay as objective as possible. If it's not our job to make the decision, but help decision makers make the decision, then we stay objective and let them know pros and cons of all the options that we have discovered so far. So in this book, the author talks about that the brain can make a decision based on thick slice. So you have a lot of information. So you go through a lot of information to make an informed decision, or it's thin slice. So brain can make a decision in a split second. And they have discussed, the author has discussed a lot of situations where people made decisions based on thin slice, and split second they made the decision, and they were able to reconcile the decision once they have a lot more information as well. A very powerful example of that we saw in 2009 when there was an emergency landing done on the Hudson River. For those of us who don't have the context, there was a bird strike, both engines failed, and the captain was given options to land on the nearby airports, but he decided to land in the Hudson River. So landing on the Hudson River, and he was able to save all the passengers. But afterwards, there was an investigation done, and they did some simulations. And based on the simulations, the investigators were able to prove that the pilot could have landed on the nearby airports. So he asked, how much time did you give me to make the decision? They said, well, we didn't incorporate any time. He said, is it fair to give me some time? And they added 35 seconds. 35 seconds for decision reaction time. And once they added those 35 seconds, the plane would crash on every airport they tried to land it on. 35 seconds. So the point I'm making here is that your gut feeling is critical to make the decisions. No decision is made in the gut. It's basically made at the part of brain that gets activated. So we make the decisions there. And once you have some kind of gut feeling, make sure you have a lot more other information to support that decision before we actually formalize it. Learning. Can we learn based on the information that we have? And the challenge we have is not that we don't have enough information, it's that we have too much information. So we need to make sure that we stay on track to get the information that is needed to do the work that we're trying to do. So there are different stages of learning. So you get some raw facts by doing some of the research. You try to make sense of it. And you try to comprehend the meaning in terms of what the new information means to us by applying the knowledge that you have. And based on that, the information that is complex, analysis basically is breaking it down. So you break it down into meaningful pieces to make sense of the new information. And then you combine that information through synthesis to look at the big picture and to evaluate it in terms of how that information is going to help us with the work that we are doing. There are three main learning styles. You learn something by looking at it, or by reading it, or by listening to it, or by doing it. So we absorb a lot of information by reading or by looking at it. So it could be your books or any other information that comes our way. We learn by listening. So it could be your podcast, audiobooks, any other media, and we learn by doing. So in our classes, we leverage all those three learning styles. So you would learn by reading the course materials and the slides. You will learn by listening to the course mates and to the instructor. And finally, you will learn by doing the exercises to solidify the learning to make sure you could apply it in the real life work that we do. And we would know that we are being very effective if we could understand the new concepts, and not only can we make sense of it, we could make our stakeholders understand the new information as well in terms of how it's going to help us with our projects. Problem solving. Before I go there, and I know Anastasia mentioned that we'll be taking questions towards the end, but I just want to take a pause, brief pause, to see if you guys are okay with the pace, and if you want me to slow it down, or I don't think you would want me to speed it up. But if you want me to slow it down, or if you have any question that cannot wait until the end, I'll be more than happy to take it. Okay, thank you very much. I got some feedback, so pace is fine. That's awesome. Problem solving. How do we solve the problems? The steps that we go through, you need to investigate or probe a bit deeper to see where the issues are coming from. So we are not dealing with just with the symptom of it. We need to get to the root cause of it. And you need to have some empathy. From our stakeholders' point of view, how are they perceiving that problem to be? Do they think it's a very big problem or is it a small problem? And then we need to challenge assumptions. That's another key skill. So if you're implementing a new system and that system is going to take care of the problem, if we are making that assumption and that assumption is not true, then we need to come clean and be objective and be transparent and let our stakeholders know that, you know, the new system is going to help us this much. It won't take care of all the problems that we are dealing with at this point in time. And what is the wall that we are trying to scale? What are our objectives that we are trying to achieve? So we need to be very clear in terms of the definition of done that we want to do. And then we want to make sure that we compare all solution options to see which option is going to best take care of the problem that we're trying to solve at this point in time. So I'll give you another practical example, and I'll make you part of the story. So suppose you're a professional and you get hired by a fashion retailer. And we want to implement a new type of industrial stitcher. What do you think the outcome is? Feel free to respond back in the chat box. What is it that we're trying to achieve by implementing a new equipment? Come on, folks. Faster production. Thank you, Emma. Exactly. And I think most of us thinking along the same lines. So yes, we want to produce more so we could sell more. And if we sell more, we could make more profit. So that is the assumption we are making. But what if the quality of material has been compromised by our supplier? So if the input is not of quality, the output would not be of quality, and producing more will not solve the problem. Our price point of selling, if we're selling it much higher than our competitors, again, we'll have the same issue. Producing more will not solve the problem. If our clothing is not trendy enough, people would not want to buy from us anyways. Producing more will not solve the problem. So we need to dig a bit deeper in terms of where the problem is coming from so we could handle it accordingly. So challenge all assumptions. The way I said, the new system will not take care of all the problems. If the problem is from the process or from the people, we need to provide more training. So challenging assumptions will help us along that line. And have the positive mindset. If you are confident, you will instill that confidence in your team members as well. I used to have team members who would come to me and they would say, well, sky is falling with every small problem. And I would say, okay, well, take a break, go for a walk, and come back and talk about it. With a positive mindset, you could take care of no matter how big the problem is that's coming our way, and make sure you're focusing on the root causes of those problems. So I'll play this video clip. If it's too slow on your screen, I'll send you guys the link afterwards. It's just for 1 minute or so. So bear with me and see what's happening, how we're trying to solve the problems, Big Bang Theory style.
I'll do the talking.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Leonard. This is... We're here to pick up Penny's TV.
Get lost.
Okay, thanks for your time.
We're not gonna give up just like that.
Leonard, the TV's in the building. We've been denied access to the building, ergo we are done.
Excuse me. If I were to give up at the first little hitch, I never would have been able to identify the fingerprints of string theory in the aftermath of the Big Bang.
My apologies. What's your plan? It's just a privilege to watch your mind at work.
Come on, we We have a combined IQ of 360. We should be able to figure out how to get into a stupid building.
What do you think their combined IQ is?
Just grab the door!
So we need to look at the root causes. System thinking. Can we think from systems point of view? A system is a combination of people, process, and technology. So they give us a complete picture of how do we interact with the systems that we're working with. So it gives us a whole picture. Now, sometimes you might have stakeholders, they would come to us and they would say, I'm just asking for one more report. I'm only asking for one more feature. The moment you hear these words, just and only, make sure the red flag goes off in your head. We don't say no to the changes that are coming in. We need to do some analysis on those changes to see how a change in one area is going to impact the other area. I have been fortunate enough to work with Kaylin. She's amazing at what she does, and she did a TED Talk a couple of years ago. Feel free to have a look. I'll send you folks the link. And I'm using this slide with her permission. So on the left side, this is not a system. So you could take something out of it or add something to it. It will not make any difference. On the right side, this is a system. Now, if you were to add something to it, more cables, or take something out of it, the system may not work if we don't apply those changes, keeping in mind how it's going to impact the system. So organizations are made of hundreds of thousands of components. So we need to have that system thinking hat. Every time a change comes in, we need to see how a change in one area, one department, is going to affect the other department. And you will be very effective if you know how much pressure can be sustained from systems point of view. So we could let our stakeholders know that this is how much change can be absorbed. And more than that, it might break the system if that's the case. Can we think conceptually? Can we make connections between the cultures that we operate in, the number of layers that we have to go through to get the decision made? Politics. There's no politics, right? Where we work, there always is. So we need to know how to navigate that politics, who our stakeholders are, and what are their needs. So we have the right requirements to work with. So we could understand how big of a change is needed to implement the solutions to provide value to our stakeholders while keeping a handle on the risks. So we don't have too many risks while implementing those solutions. With conceptual thinking, you would know where to focus at what point in time. So at the start of the initiative, you will be focusing more on your stakeholders and their requirements. And once we understand the need, then we'll switch gears and focus more on the solutions and the change, so we could provide value while keeping a handle on the risks that we have. And we would know that we're being very effective if you could connect seemingly unrelated information to look at the bigger picture and able to communicate that information to our stakeholders as well. And finally, our visual thinking technique is critical as well. We want to make sure that we are effective communicator. And if you're leveraging the right visuals to supplement your communications, you will be able to explain complex relationship to your stakeholders. And they'll be able to provide feedback on time, and the right information with the right visual will keep our stakeholders engaged. There has been some visuals that some stakeholders, some business analysts, or some professionals use. They're very hard to understand. So if you're doing a process mapping, for example, the map is too complex. So you have to provide training to your stakeholders so they can make sense of it. So make sure things are easy. Things are simple, things are straightforward. If you're presenting to your top management, we used to have 3 boxes for a process at a very high level, and would tell them the problem is in the second box. Now you have the attention. Now you dig deeper in the second box and explain where the problem is coming from. And with the right visual, they could make sense of it. So they could compare our sales number from this year to last year and how the future is going to look like based on the patterns that we have. So there was some research done. It takes about 60 seconds to read 250 words. And if you supplement the information with the right visual, it would take them 1/10 of a second. It makes us 600 times more effective if we are leveraging the right visuals to supplement the documentation that we have or the communications that we do. So if you're sending a 40-page document and everything is text, trust me, no one has time to read 40-page document. But if you could extract the key information in few pages and have the right visuals and graphs or charts with it, people would be very receptive to those communications, and they will respond back on time, because that has been a challenge with some of the work that I had done over the years. And you will keep their engagement. Now, every time you look at a chart or a graph, we say this information is good enough for us to move forward, or we trust that information, but should we? So let's see what's happening here.
A toothpaste brand claims their product will destroy more plaque than any product ever made. A politician tells you their plan will create the most jobs. We're so used to hearing these kinds of exaggerations in advertising and politics that we might not even bat an eye. But what about when the claim is accompanied by a graph? After all, a graph isn't an opinion. It represents cold, hard numbers, and who can argue with those? Yet, as it turns out, there are plenty of ways graphs can mislead and outright manipulate. Here are some things to look out for. In this 1992 ad, Chevy claimed to make the most reliable trucks in America using this graph. Not only does it show that 98% of all Chevy trucks sold in the last 10 years are still on the road, but it looks like they're twice as dependable as Toyota trucks. That is, until you take a closer look at the numbers on the left and see that the figure for Toyota is about 96.5%. The scale only goes between 95 and 100%. If it went from 0 to 100, it would look like this. This is one of the most common ways graphs misrepresent data, by distorting the scale. Zooming in on a small portion of the y-axis exaggerates a barely detectable difference between the things being compared. And it's especially misleading with bar graphs, since we assume the difference in the size of the bars is proportional to the values. But the scale can also be distorted along the.
So there's more to it. And again, we'll be sending this information out to you, and there's a link underneath this slide. So feel free to click the link and you will see the whole video. But the point I'm making is, just don't look at the graph or chart, look at the scales as well. It was an eye-opener for me as well. And whenever we are engaged in analytical thinking, we need to keep a balance between confidence and humility, as John Maxwell said. So if we are too confident, sometimes we become arrogant and we don't take into consideration the feedback from our stakeholders. Or if you have too much humility, then we lose the confidence to keep the momentum going for the work that we are doing. So try to keep that balance. And sometimes whenever there's a disagreement, some of you wear glasses, I don't. But if I were to wear glasses and you and I have a disagreement, and I say, here, take my glasses, put them on, and you will see exactly what I'm seeing. Would that work? Most likely not. But that's what we do day in and day out. Based on my experience, this will always work. Based on my experience, this will not work, or my knowledge says something else. What we're saying is, here, take my glasses, put them on, and you will see exactly what I'm saying. So what I need to do at that point in time is to take a step back and let the other person speak and listen with intent, active listening, make sure that we understand where the other person is coming from. Once they know that they have been understood, their guards will go down and they'll be more receptive to listen to us. So active listening is important in our communications, and it's a skill that we all can learn. And I thought I learned it quite a bit until I had a disagreement with my wife. She said, you need to work more on it. So I'm working more on it. But in professional life and personal life, active listening would help you quite a bit. people think from their own perspectives. So we need to respect that. Our knowledge and experience shape us in terms of who we are at this point in time. So sometimes there's some faulty reasoning people use whenever we have a disagreement. So make sure that you have these reasoning in mind. The very first one is, I said so, no one ever said that, right? Well, I have had my fair share. So the moment you hear these words, it means the other person is out of their logical argument and they're being emotional and not rational. Now, you may very well have the information and the urge to crush that person with the information that we have, especially if that other stakeholder has not been reasonable. Make sure we hold that urge. You could win the battle, you will lose the war. It takes years. It takes years sometimes to build relationships, and it takes seconds to break them. So whenever you have this kind of situation, make sure you take it offline, talk to that person one-on-one. Don't ever challenge them in the group setting, because people will bring their egos and it will become more personal than professional. Generalization. Sometimes people would say that it will always work. It will never work. Based on my previous job, it worked perfectly. What we need to do at that point in time is to remind them that we are talking about a particular situation. So let's talk about the situation at hand. So we could deal with that particular problem. And sometimes we get stuck thinking there are only two options. So it's either I'm right and you're wrong, or vice versa. There's always more than two options. So just because I'm not donating $15 doesn't mean I hate children. It could very well mean that I have a different charity or something else for that matter. So make sure don't get stuck on two options. Find the third, fourth, fifth options. By leveraging any of the techniques that we talked about, creative thinking could be applicable here. So we talked about this skill set. If you apply these skills, you will have a lot more authority and power in the work that we do. And with that, I'll be taking some questions. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mubashir. Yes, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. We'll have time for a few questions.
Okay, so I guess I did an excellent job. If you guys have no questions, I'm kidding. Sometimes you might think of some questions afterwards as well. If that's the case, I'm more than happy to talk to you. I'll give 5 more seconds. Thank you very much for your feedback. I appreciate that, Jesslyn.
Oh.
Thank you, Shirley.
Yeah, it looks like there is a question.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on the difference between new ideas and new associations?
Sure. So the new idea could be, what is it that we want to do to solve the problem that we did not think of before? Existing idea could be that you already have thought of some of the concept beforehand. So for example, we were doing a brainstorming for a coffee shop. And in that coffee shop, their business was going down. So they were thinking of what can we do? So existing idea was that they have some coffee options and they have some bakery items. And they were thinking of adding some produce. Now, those ideas may or may not be valid, but they were thinking of augmenting their shop with some high moving items that people need them on every couple of day basis. So they could make it a one-stop shop. So the association that you need to make is what else can we do with what I have? So that's what I meant. And again, we don't want to get stuck in our own boxes. We want to think outside. And whenever you're doing brainstorming, it's the quantity of the idea and not the quality of the idea. So the example that I shared with you in this presentation was to increase the approval limit to $250. It was not easy. The management did not want to give that much authority to customer service folks, but we had to make our case that, listen, there's only one person in that big box store that has the approval authority, and your customer will walk out. So that was the association that we had to make at that point in time, the approval limit to the customer frustration. That's what I meant. So new association is not associating new ideas, but existing. Yeah, so basically you come up with the new ideas and you connect with the existing. Yes, you're right. Or sometimes, again, you could come up with 2 new ideas and you can connect them as well. So you want to build 3 buildings that are totally powered by solar energy, and you want to build a pool on top of it. So you have 2 new ideas and you're connecting those ideas as well. So it could go either way. You're welcome. Any other questions, folks? So if there's nothing else, I'll be more than happy to speak with you one-on-one. This is my passion. I love to do it. And I'll be more than happy to talk to you based on the work that you're doing. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You could just Google my name and hopefully it will take you to the right link. Or you could send me an email. My email address is here as well. Feel free to join me for the next courses that I'm teaching. April 6th is the procurement management, and May 18th is the requirements analysis and design. And in our courses, we go a lot more in detail. We have a lot more time. And again, my relationship with you folks is not ending by ending this webinar. I hope to speak to you in the near future. Thank you very much for your time. And I'm going to hand it back to Anastasia.
Thank you so much, Mubashir. Thank you so much for presenting for us today. That was really lovely. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming and giving your noon hour to us to hopefully engage in these new ideas and new thoughts. We really appreciate it. And yes, as Mubashir indicated, we do have some courses coming up. And yes, and hopefully in a few days, you will receive that further information in an email. So thank you so much again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.